Hello friends, how are you all doing? I hope that you all are doing well and you guys are having fun learning all these chapters of English literature. Today we are going to start with the new chapter and the name of our chapter is The Ashes That Made the Trees Bloom. Wow, this is a chapter which is written like basically it's a Japanese tale which is written by William Elliot Griffiths. Now, just imagine the name of chapter is so interesting that the ashes that made the trees bloom, how interesting the chapter would be. Yes, this chapter is very interesting as when we'll read this chapter, you'll come to know. Basically, this chapter tells us about like to differentiate between how good kind people are and how bad the greedy people are and how good the consequences are with the kind people and the greedy people. So it is basically talking about an old couple. First of all, this chapter talks about an old couple which is very kind. That couple is very generous. You will see the traits of the old couple, that how that couple is very generous. We'll read. So the first thing is that the patient and kind couple. It is a very patient and kind couple. And what happens is this couple has no children. इनके कोई भी बच्चे नहीं होते थे. So they basically adopted a street dog and they named that dog Muko. Muko. This is the third line. Had a pet dog named Muko. The old dame made it a cushion of blue crepe and the dog would sit on it as snug as any cat. So this shows the love of the old couple कि old couple को वो अपने मतलब adopted pet dog से भी कितना ज़्यादा प्यार था that they actually made a cushion for that and they used to feed a lot the dog with a lot of good stuff and just treated that dog with like just a child. Okay, so the old dame here means again couple made it cushions. Okay, the next one is the dog was fed tidbits of fish, all the boiled rice with all it wanted. So now what it says that all the boiled rice even in the plate of the old couple, like this is so good na, you know हमारी plate में जो भी खाना होता है, it is very easy to share with our children. You know, your parents can so easily share that food with you, but to show that love to a dog, मतलब एक dog को अपनी plate में से खाना देना, that was the love the old couple had for that dog. So this tells us about the love they had and how kind they were with that dog. So what happens basically, who was the old man? Old man and his wife lived alone and old man was a farmer. So this chapter tells us like from the morning to the evening so what happened, the farmer used to work in the fields. He used to work a lot, like so he used to work hard from the morning till the evening in the fields. Dog always followed him. It says now they were loving the dog, but it wasn't that dog wasn't feeling anything. Dog was equally loving and dog was equally faithful to the old couple. So क्या होता था, dog always used to follow that couple follow that farmer in the field and without harming the white heron. Now in the fields what happens, it's a bird, so without harming that bird the dog used to follow carefully his master. Like this shows the love they both had with each other. Okay, now what happens, this depicts a scene what happens within the story. One day the dog comes running to the master, like to the farmer, the old man, and he was just doing his routine work. What happened, the dog putting his paws against his legs and his head was also in motion. What happened, he was like, you know, the dogs the way they are, you know, doing something, and then he wanted his master to go to a spot behind. वो उसको कहीं पे लेके जाना चाहता था, तो वो अपना सर हिला रहा था डॉग ऐसे, तो उसके मास्टर को लगा, उसने इग्नोर कर दिया उसके मास्टर को लगा कि क्या होगा, ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा उसको एक बोन मिल गई होगी या फिर कुछ यू नो डेड एनिमल होगा जहाँ पे वो उसका डॉग लेके जाना चाहते, तो ओल्ड मैन ने एक बार इग्नोर कर दिया. ठीक है, द ओल्ड मैन थॉट दैट द डॉग वाज प्लेइंग. उसको लगा कि इनिशियली पहले खेल रहा है, सो ओल्ड मैन जस्ट इग्नोर्ड, बट द डॉग केप्ट ऑन विनिंग एंड रनिंग टू एंड फ्रो. नाउ यू मस्ट हैव अ पेट. इफ यू हैव अ पेट यू मस्ट नो कि अगर हमारे डॉग्स को कुछ फील होता है, वो हमारे पास आके हमसे खेलने की कोशिश करते हैं या हमें कुछ बताने की कोशिश करते हैं. सो playing is different, but when they try to tell us something is different. So to and fro means वो उसके आगे पीछे होता रहा जब तक उसका मास्टर उसके साथ वो स्पॉट पे नहीं गया. So this clearly shows that dog उनको कुछ बताना चाहता था अपने मास्टर को. So then master agreed and went to that place with the dog. Let's see what happens next. Now you can see what happens next is very interesting. That's when the old man followed the dog a few yards. Dog started scratching. Okay, when the dog started scratching, the old man thought कि यार ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा क्या होगा, एक बोन निकल जाएगी या फिर कोई डेड एनिमल होगा. डॉग्स को तभी ऐसे पता चल जाता है, फाउल स्मेल होगी उसको. द मैन वॉज थिंकिंग इन हिज हेड कि ऐसे ही कुछ हो सकता है, इससे ज़्यादा तो और क्या होगा. बट टू हिज सरप्राइज व्हाट हैपेंड व्हेन दे एक्चुअली डग इट एंड they found a pile of gold, like right there you would see that these coins of gold, they would found a pile of gold, like heap of gold coming out. So in that very second you will see that the rich man became very wealthy in that very hour. Initially वो बहुत poor होते थे. They bought a piece of land, made a feast for their friends, gave plentifully to their poor neighbors. So now what happened, they were not miser at all. They distributed the wealth they had like very happily. उन्होंने अपने friends को feast भी दिया और neighbors के साथ भी उन्होंने celebrate किया. They gave a lot to their neighbors. Now what happened, the story tells us about the other couple, that is the wicked old couple. Now what happened, there was a wicked couple. That couple was not at all kind like the initial couple. We are going to discuss two couples. एक तो पहले वाला था old couple जो कि बहुत kind था, बहुत patient थे, बहुत generous थे. अब आता है wicked old couple. They were not at all kind, they were not at all generous, and they were very cruel, like not kind. Okay, so and they were not at all sensitive towards anybody, especially the dogs. They were not at all sensitive towards the dog. And let's read this point. Always scolded the dogs around, and on hearing their neighbors' good luck, they coaxed the dog into their garden. They kept a lot of tasty food in the front of the dog, but the dog neither ate nor moved. अब क्या हुआ, ये जो old wicked couple था, it was very famous. This couple was very famous in the whole area. Why this couple was famous? Because they were not kind at all. And जितने भी dogs वगैरह थे वो उनके घर के आसपास कभी दिखते ही नहीं थे, और अगर दिखते भी थे तो ये old couple क्या करता था, उनको बहुत डांटता था, scold करता था और वहाँ से भगा देता था. So when this wicked couple came to know about his neighbor's luck, जब उनको पता चला कि उनके neighbors को तो इतना सारा gold मिल गया, so हम क्या करते हैं, हम उनके dog को ले आते हैं. So वो लोग उनके dog को ले आए अपने पास, ये सोचते हुए कि क्या पता वो डॉग हमारे लिए भी इतना फ्रूटफुल साबित हो और हमें भी इतना सारा गोल्ड ला के दे दे. सो वो उस डॉग को ले आए एंड दे केप्ट अ लॉट ऑफ टेस्टी फूड इन फ्रंट ऑफ द डॉग. बट डॉग वाज सो फ्राइटेंड, वो इतना खुद से डरा हुआ था कि वो डॉग हिला तक नहीं, ना उसने मूव किया, ना उसने कुछ खाया. बट दैट ओल्ड कपल वाज जस्ट फोर्सिंग द डॉग कि वो कहीं हमें बाहर लेके जाए, जैसे वो अपने पुराने मास्टर को लेके गया था और उसको ट्रेजर दिलवाया था. सो ये विकेड कपल सिर्फ इतना चाहता था कि उनके साथ भी ऐसा सेम हो जाए. So what happened next? Now the wicked couple repeats the whole scenario. मतलब वो डॉग को खाना भी दे देते हैं, सब कुछ अच्छा फूड दे देते हैं, फिर वो फोर्स करते हैं डॉग को कि बाहर चलो और मुझे कोई जगह दिखाओ. बट द डॉग वाज नॉट विलिंग, बट देन स्टिल दे ड्रैग्ड द डॉग इन द फील्ड आउटसाइड. सो टेकिंग विद देम अ स्पेड एंड हो. सो व्हाट हैपेंड, उन्होंने अपने आप को ऑलरेडी प्रिपेयर्ड रखा हुआ था. उस विकेड कपल ने, उन्होंने अपने पास स्पेड और हो रखा हुआ था कि अगर मुझे हमें कहीं पे भी डिगिंग स्टार्ट करनी पड़े, we'll start the digging. So the dog starts to paw and scratch the ground near a pine tree. What happens now is initially तो dog बाहर जा ही नहीं रहा था, वो लोग उसको drag करके लेके गए. तो but अब जैसे fields में लेके जा रहे हैं तो dog ने तो paw scratch करना ही, अगर उसको कुछ ना कुछ मिलेगा. So what happened? The dog started to scratch and paw. अब now they get excited. वो जो greedy couple था वो बहुत excited हो गया, उनको लगा कि अब हम dig करेंगे, हमें भी gold मिलेगा. So they were very happy. So without wasting any time, they started digging. But what happened in return after digging a lot and a lot? Let's see what happened. Came out was a dead kitten, and the bad smell covered the whole area. Now what happened? Instead of gold coming out of that pit, what came out? A dead kitten came out. जब हम compare करेंगे कि जो previous वाला master था उसको तो चाहिए भी नहीं था gold, और वो तो यही सोच रहा था कि उसमें कोई dead kitten हो सकता है या dead animal हो सकता है, because that that is the obvious thing that happens, right? Dogs are going to react that way. But यहाँ पे ऐसा नहीं हुआ. इसका जो wicked master था वो बहुत angry हो गया and he started beating the dog. He beated the dog that like nearly to death. वो almost मरने वाला हो गया था वो dog. Okay, what happened? Furious means again angry at the dog. The old man kicked and beat him to death. उन्होंने उसको इतना मारा कि उसकी वो कहते हैं ना मरने वाली हालत हो गई थी, like that. And the old woman finishes the work. Old woman here is the wife of that wicked old man. That woman finishes the work by nearly chopping off his head with the sharp hoe. How sad it is. Now just imagine his wife, the wicked man's wife, chopped off the head of the dog and he was dead right there. The cruel couple threw the carcass is the body of the dog, in a hike and covers it. Now what happens is उन्होंने उसको मार दिया and that was such a sad moment. Just imagine with that dog. First of all तो उसको ज़बरदस्ती लेकर गए and then when he was not able to give them the gold, you know, so they beat him to death. So this was a very bad phase in this chapter, and this old couple, the wicked couple, burnt. They did not actually burn the carcass. उन्होंने उसके ऊपर pile कर दिया सारा earth, like मिट्टी से उसको cover कर दिया. Okay, this was the whole thing. Now just think about the old master, जो old kind couple था, old man था, उसको जब पता चला, he got so sad that the dog is no more. So what he does, the owner of the dog, which means the old kind man, mourns when he comes to know about the death of his pet. He mourns very badly जब उसको पता चलता है कि उसके pet की death हो गई है. Sets up bamboo tubes in the ground, put fresh flowers. Old man laid a cup of water, tray of food on the grave and burned several sticks of incense. He mourned a great while over his pet. These lines tell us about the way the kind man mourned over his dog. You can see here he put some tubes here, like जैसे tom पर होती हैं tubes. Similarly he put those tubes under that pine tree and bamboo tubes थी ये, और उसने वहाँ पे एक tray रखी which was full of food and everything जो उसके dog को पसंद था. Like he was so sad that he did everything for that dog. उसने grave पे वो tray रख दी with the food and incense sticks भी उसने burn की. So if this question comes in your exam that describe how he mourned, so this is what you're going to tell, that how he mourned the death of his dog. So what happens next, we are going to see that in the chapter, in this picture also you can see after he does this, like after the kind man mourns on the death of his dog, उसके बाद that dog appears to in his dream. You can see here. अब जब dog appear करता है kind man के dreams में, what is the dog going to tell? Now the dog appears to the old man in his dream and asks him to cut down the pine tree and make from it a mortar for rice pastry and a mill for bean sauce. अब वो उसके ड्रीम में, ओल्ड मैन की ड्रीम में डॉग कहता है प्लीज कट डाउन दैट पाइन ट्री एंड मेक अ मोटार एंड अ हैंड मिल. सो मतलब विदाउट एनी क्वेश्चनिंग ओल्ड मैन ने क्या किया, उसने एग्जैक्टली वैसा कर दिया जैसे उसके डॉग ने उसको ड्रीम में बोला था. सो द ओल्ड मैन डज द सेम, चॉप डाउन द ट्री विद ग्रेट लेबर. उसको बहुत सारी ताकत के साथ करना पड़ा. ही वॉज ऑल अलोन बट विद ग्रेट लेबर ही वॉज एबल टू डू दैट. एंड वॉट हैपन, ही वॉज फाइनली एबल टू मेक द मोटार एंड द हैंड मिल. सो वॉट हैपन नेक्स्ट, अब न्यू ईयर्स का टाइम आ गया. ही वॉन्टेड टू मेक राइस पेस्ट्री, दैट ओल्ड काइंड मैन. सो वॉट हैपन, ही डिसाइडेड दैट ही इज गोइंग टू मेक राइस पेस्ट्रीज. सो ही विश टू मेक राइस पेस्ट्रीज. So what for that, he has to boil rice, right? So rice was boiled and put into his mortar. The old man lifted his hammer to pound the mass into dough. So what happened, suddenly the whole mass turned into a heap of coins, heap of gold coins. Now what happens, the old woman fills the hand mill with beans to grind. As she grinded, the gold dropped like rain. Now again, this was the second time when she used the hand mill and it dropped like rain of gold. It was just like a rain of gold and it was so beautiful. And meanwhile the neighbors were watching everything and again they were envious of it. Okay, so what happened, now the neighbors watched that how it just turned into gold and it dropped like rain. So the next day the wicked old couple neighbor came and borrowed the mortar and the hand mill. They filled it with boiled rice. Now what was the reason why they wanted to borrow? They wanted to borrow because they were thinking if we'll do the same again the gold will drop just like before. So they filled it with boiled rice and beans just like their neighbor did. As they grinded, now this is very funny that as and when they grinded it, on the first blow and turn, pastry sauce turned into a foul mass of worms. Instead of turning it into gold, it turned into a foul mass of worms. And again, the wicked couple was full of anger and frustration that हमारे साथ ऐसा क्यों है, you know, हमारे kind neighbor के साथ तो उसको हमेशा gold मिल जाता है, but when it comes to us, the opposite of it happens. So again, it was full of worms. So what happened? Wicked neighbor was again so angry. Now this part tells us that wicked neighbor becomes so angry that they break down the hand mill and the mortar, और वो उसको ashes को मतलब I mean break down कर दिया उन्होंने hand mill और mortar को, और वो अपने हाथ सेकने लग गए because it was very cold that time, it was the season, so they just broke it into pieces. Now what happened? The spirit of dog came to the old man's dream again, like for the second time. A spirit of dog again came to the kind man, and the spirit of dog spoke to the kind man. Let's see what the spirit of dog spoke. The spirit of dog said that take the ashes of the mill, sprinkle them on the withered trees and they will bloom again. So dog दोबारा से second time dream में आया kind man के, और उसने बोला जो उसने burn कर दिया ना तुम्हारी मोटार और मिल, उसकी ashes लो और sprinkle कर दो जहाँ पे भी withered trees है, and you will see that they will blossom. So the old man somehow managed to get a basket filled with ashes. Now why is it written that somehow managed? Now we know that the wicked couple was very cruel and they were very insensitive. So what happened? जब वो kind man उनके घर गया कि मुझे मोटार दे दो या उसके ashes दे दो, उसने broken pieces की towards देखा और बहुत humbly उनसे request किया कि please give me the ashes or please give me the broken pieces. तो जो wicked couple था उन्होंने उससे इतने बहुत बुरे तरीके से बात की और बहुत इनसेंसिटिव मैनर में बात की, ऑल्दो मोटार और मिल काइंड मैन की थी, उनकी प्रॉपर्टी होने के बावजूद भी द विकेड कपल वाज सो इनसेंसिटिव, बट द विकेड कपल समहाउ गेव हिम द एशेस. तो फिर काइंड मैन ने क्या किया, अपनी बास्केट भर ली जितनी भी एशेस उसको मिली थी. सो लेट्स सी व्हाट हैपेंड. आफ्टर टेकिंग दैट बास्केट, वो जो एशेस की बास्केट थी वो अपनी वाइफ के साथ जाता है एंड दे गो टू देयर फेवरेट चेरी ट्री. लेट्स सी व्हाट हैपेंस. ये उनका फेवरेट चेरी ट्री होता था. नाउ दैट ओल्ड मैन जस्ट स्प्रिंकल्ड द एशेस ओवर द cherry tree and it blossomed. That's what we see, and it was such a beautiful. Just imagine that you are standing in front of a withered tree and आप उसके ऊपर ashes फेंक रहे हो and they bloom out. So it was very beautiful, and people around the village, they were noticing this wonder and they were so happy and they were amazed like ये कैसे miracle हो गया. So this is what happened. The favorite cherry tree was bare, but when he sprinkled it blossomed until it became a cloud of pink blooms which perfumed in the air. Everyone in the village was amazed to see the wonder. Everybody was surprised कि यार ये bare tree एकदम से इतना blossom कैसे हो गया. Daimio was to pass along the high road. Now who's a daimyo? Daimyo is a word that is used for landlord in Japanese language. So at that time landlords were treated with a lot of respect and honor. They were very powerful people and with a lot of money and power. So they were respected by every person in the village. So the old man went to see him with a basket of ashes. He climbed up into an old withered cherry tree. Now उस time पर क्या होता था? There was a custom. Let's see, these was the custom. Custom are the things that you were supposed to do. जब भी आप daimyo के आसपास होते थे तो you were supposed to do that thing. Or if the procession of the daimyo or the landlord is passing, you were supposed to kneel down, like in order to show respect. So what happened? Loyal people, to shut up their high windows, जितनी भी high windows होती थी, they were supposed to shut them down. People would fall upon their hands and knees in order to show respect. A man warns everyone to get on knees. So right when the procession of the landlord is coming, what happens? There is a man जो सबको warn करता रहता है that go back on your knees and bend down because the landlord is coming. So instead of getting on his knees, the kind old man, what he did, he climbed onto that withered cherry tree. Now, what happened? Now, when Daimio's palanquin drew near, the old man took ashes and scattered it over the tree. Now, what happened? जब उसका procession जा रहा था Daimio का, he saw that a man was, sitting on that withered tree, but he somehow ignored it. उसने कहा चलो इतना बूढ़ा इंसान है तो हम इसको ignore कर देते हैं, and why to punish him? तो what happened? But Daimio was constantly looking at him. उसने react नहीं किया, but he was looking. So right when the procession passed, तो ओल्ड मैन ने क्या किया, उसने वो ashes विदर ट्री पे डाल दी, and right when it bursted into blossoms. So Daimyo was very delighted. So first of all he ignored, but when he saw this miracle, अच्छा this man has done this thing, like उसने विदर ट्री पे ashes डाली और blossom, he was so delighted, he was so happy with that incident. He thanked and offered him presents. जो old man था, old kind man था, उसने उसको presents दिए like silk robes, sponge cake, fans and many other rewards. So ultimately what happened? Ultimately the kind man was again full with a lot of fine goods and everything and so many rewards. मतलब उसके पास किसी चीज़ की कमी नहीं थी. Ultimately the thing was this. So now again the envious and the greedy neighbors were again looking about this कि कैसे उन्होंने ashes डाली और वो blossom कर गया और उनको इतने सारे rewards मिले Daimyo से. So again as we have seen the pattern of this chapter, greedy जो उनका greedy neighbor होता है वो फिर से try करता है कि let me also do this. So the greedy neighbor does the same, thinking that the magic ashes would work the same way for him. So greedy neighbor फिर से ashes इकट्ठे करता है and in the similar manner वो एक tree पे climb कर जाता है. Right when the palanquin is passing वो throw करता है ashes, but it doesn't work the same for him because he was greedy. So what happened? Instead of blooming the flowers out of that withered tree, the ashes went into the eyes of Daimyo and his wife. Now this was so funny कि वो सोच रहे थे कि blossom हो जाएगा, but instead the ashes blew into nose and eyes of Daimyo and his wife, making them sneeze and choke. They were like totally choked with the ashes. Just imagine ashes आपके nose में, eyes में directly जा रही हैं, so you will choke obviously. So that's how the wife and the Daimyo choked because of the ashes. Now the old wicked couple was thinking that the trees will bloom और उनको rewards मिलेंगे, but again the opposite happens. The tree did not bloom and ashes Daimyo और उसकी wife के अंदर चलेगी, उनको choke कर दिया, and then they were punished by the men of the Daimyo. So old wicked man was dragged and thrown by the road. Wicked old man died in the mud, but the kind friend of dog dwelt in peace and plenty. This is how we see the chapter ends here, that the old man was he was dragged and he was punished and he was just sent in the mud. He was thrown in the mud, but on the other hand the kind friend of dog dwelt in peace and plenty. So this chapter shows us that kindness is always rewarded. Just like the old man's kindness was rewarded twice by the dog, even by his spirit, even when he was dead. In his spirit he consoled the family, but every time the same thing was done by the wicked neighbor, उनके साथ हमेशा opposite हो जाता था. So they were cruel, So it's just like kindness always pays back. So I hope that this chapter is clear to you. Now we'll be moving on to the question answers of this chapter. So now we'll be moving on to the question answers of this chapter, and let's begin. So the first question is, the old farmer is a kind person. What evidence of his kindness do you find in the first two paragraphs? So we find a lot of evidence in the whole chapter, but specifically in the first paragraph we find that the old man treats dog like his own child. He feeds him with the tidbits of fish, the boiled rice of his plate. So this is the instance that you find in the first paragraph. And moving on, when you'll move on to the second paragraph, we'll see that he also used to provide food to the birds, and also on purpose he sometimes used to turn up the ground just for the birds. So these two instances prove that he was a very kind person. Let's move on to the next question. Now the next question is, what did the dog do to lead the farmer to the hidden gold? We can see that the dog came running to the farmer, his paws were placed against his legs, and he was winning his here and there, and he was was directing his head to a spot behind. But when he saw that the farmer was not, paying so much of attention, he kept on winning and running to and fro from here and there and nodding to a place, like directing his head to a place that is at the back. So he took the farmer that way to the spot behind. Now the next question is, how did the spirit of the dog help the farmer first? So we know that in the very beginning, when the spirit of the dog spoke to the farmer, he came to his dreams and the spirit asked the farmer to cut down the pine tree and make from it a mortar and a handmill. So that led to a lot of gold and heaps of gold to the kind man. This is the first time when the spirit of dog helped the kind man. Now the second part says, how did it help him next? Now what was the next time when the dog helped, the spirit of dog helped the kind man? So the next time when the spirit of dog appeared to the old man, the spirit of dog asked him to use the ashes and throw them on the withered trees, and that's how when they blossomed. And when he repeated this whole incident in front of the landlord, he was so impressed and happy that he rewarded him with a lot of gifts. So ultimately it again helped the kind man to fill himself with a lot of gifts and lavish gifts. He was very happy. So let's move on to the next question. The next question says that why did the Daimio reward the farmer but punish his neighbor for the same act? Now we see in this text that you will find that the Daimio first of all rewarded the kind man for the act of throwing the ashes on the withered trees, but for the same act Daimio punished the wicked old man. What was the reason why he did that? He did that because when the kind man threw the ashes, it turned into blossom. The withered cherry tree turned into blossoms. But when the wicked man did the same, the ashes went into the eyes of Daimyo and his wife, and it caused a lot of choking to them, and they were suffocated with the ashes. So similarly, the wicked man was punished for the act and the kind man was rewarded. So I hope that the question answers of this chapter are clear to you guys. We'll be meeting in our next video. Till then, take care.